Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul TX14 Walsh and welcome to some more Gran Turismo Sport, a racing game developed by Polyphony Digital and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment for the PlayStation 4. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different from the online races, instead taking the 1988 Porsche 962C for a test drive as requested by Mia Yosh, a subscriber of the channel. During the test drive I will give my thoughts on what the car is like to drive. However, before we head out on track, a brief background regarding the car. The Porsche 962 is a prototype race car designed by Norbert Singer of Porsche for entry into the International Motorsports Association's Grand Touring Prototype or IMSA GTP Championships, and subsequently the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile or the FIA's Group C category races. Based on the existing Porsche 956, which had been banned from the IMSA GTP due to safety concerns with respect to the driver's positioning, the Porsche 962 would be a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car powered upon its introduction in 1984 by a 3-litre Porsche Type 935 Kühne, Kopp and Kausch twin-turbocharged flat-six engine producing 780 horsepower at 8,200 RPM or revolutions per minute, with a 5-speed manual transmission. Where a racing career lasted from 1984 to 1994, the Porsche 962 would go on to win 21 Constructors' Championships, along with a number of high-profile endurance races, such as the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1986 and 1987. The version of the car shown here is the 1988 Group C spec car, as powered by an Andial 3.2-litre turbocharged flat-six engine, producing 600 horsepower at 7,000 RPM, with a 5-speed manual transmission. Background covered, time for us to head to the track. As for our choice of track, there can only be one, and that is the Circuit 24 Hours of Le Mans, also known as Circuit de la Sarthe. As you'll see on screen, with respect to setup, I'm running the car as standard, meaning I have not changed any settings, and balance of performance is not active. With respect to tyres, I'm using the Racing Super Softs for maximum grip. Tyre wear and fuel consumption are not active. Now, some of you may notice I've already posted some times to the Porsche 962C around the circuit. These times were recorded a couple of weeks ago when I originally planned to do this video. However, unforeseen circumstances intervened. As a result, my target will be to beat my current record of a 3:29.5. I'm going to show you 3 laps. My first lap where I'm getting reacquainted with the car and the circuit, the final lap of my initial session with the car, and then the fastest lap of my second and final session in the car where I sought to beat my current record. So without further ado, let's get racing. So riding on board for our initial lap, we'll see straight away that the one thing that actually caught me out was how quickly this vehicle accelerates out of second and third gear. I'm used to Group 3 and Group 4 cars whereby you've got all the way out to 6th or 7th gear and the acceleration is quite potent in the lower gears, but not like this as we go into the Dunlop curve at 169 miles an hour and then brake down sharply for the Dunlop chicane turns 2 and 3 before carrying through, getting on the accelerator coming out of turn 3 and charging up towards the S's turns 4 and 5. You'll see them shortly, a left-hander into a right-hander. And there's already a contrast starting to form in terms of the sense of speed and acceleration in this car versus its powerful brakes, and we'll see that again down the Mulsanne straight. But for now, taking it safely through turn 6, don't want to get caught out here, coming through the corner, getting it nicely on the outer curve. And now charging down the first part of the Mulsanne straight, we're going to see the top speed of the Porsche 962C unleashed. With the top speed rated with the standard setup from 242 miles an hour, correct me if I'm wrong. But here we're going to be reaching just in excess of 200 miles an hour in 5th gear. And that was one thing, because you've only got 5 gears here, each gear is extended and that means you can just focus on the driving until you come into the braking zones and then focus on the gear shifts. As we come through the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight here, so turn 7, braking a bit too early and not as much speed, but getting used to the car and the track, that's the point of this initial lap. And we can see now, charging once again, that acceleration is coming in and we're starting to head towards that top speed. And this straight is just going to disappear in a flash. Whereas in a Group 3 or Group 4 car, you're on this straight for a considerable period of time and you have to try and maintain your concentration. In the Porsche 962, you're going to have to maintain your concentration because you've got a corner coming up very shortly. As we brake down here at 196 miles an hour, coming down to third, then into second gear, going through turn 8, and getting back on the power, going a little bit wide out of the chicane, but making the conclusion part, and then coming down to the third part of the Mulsanne straight to head towards turn 9. The sharp right-hander with a flying introductory right-hander as well, which is more of a kink rather than a turn. And we see the speed is building constantly as we come up towards this corner, and we're getting ready to shift all the way down to second gear rather than first gear. Now, why am I focusing quite heavily on second gear rather than first gear in these slower corners? Well, the simple reason I actually did not enjoy using this car in first gear. I found that in first gear, if you really stamp down on the throttle, it actually caused the rear end of the car to start to jut out. And that's one thing you may have noticed has not happened so far and will not really be happening across any of the laps that I'm going to be running this car on. In the fact that the rear end of this car is so firmly planted and the front end is so firmly planted. There's a little bit of understeer that you'll see every so often with speed. But other than that, as we come through turn 10 here, you can just attack the corners with so much confidence. And the same here at turn 11. We just flow in, get on the throttle as we come out and head down towards turn 12. The rear end isn't sliding all around. Compared to what I'm used to in, say, the Honda NSX Group 3 car, well, that rear end is going to be all over the place, as we did use first gear there, and we got caught on the limiter a little bit, and that's why I prefer to use second gear normally, just simply because we're getting caught on the limiter in first gear, because first gear is so short, but then the rest of the gears are so long by comparison. As we're now coming down into the Porsche curves at this point, and we're going to be charging through them like nobody's business here, braking initially down to third gear to get a feel for how the car's going to flow through them, and full on the throttle as we go through the second curve. A left-hander followed by another left-hander, the third curve. And we can see in fourth gear, lifting a little bit off of the throttle, we can just flow through very nicely. And because the car's so planted, with the racing super soft tyres, plus the amount of downforce it has and the configuration of the brakes, it's just such a nice car whereby you can have full confidence in the car. And that gives you the confidence to start to really push it, as we're about to see the Ford chicanes. The first one, are we going to make it? Broke a bit too late, so unfortunately we missed that chicane, and we're just going to take it softly through the final one so we don't pick up a penalty, and we can start to move on to our next lap. Albeit we're going to skip forward to our final lap of this initial session, but so far we can see there's a lot of potential to enjoy the Porsche 962C here, and now let's move on to the next lap where we enjoy a lot more. So riding on board once again, you can see this time I'm going to attack the circuit with maximum conviction, trying to get as close as possible to that 329.5. And coming back to that concept of confidence, now I've got the confidence in the car and I've started to have a feel, because this is my 8th lap of the starting session. I'm getting a feel for all the braking points, the turning points, so I'm just going for it now. As we come through the Dunlop chicane, you see I do cut the second part of the chicane, albeit I just about keep the left-hand tyres on the white lines, which is why I don't pick up a penalty. For those wondering, I am running the same rule set as part of this time trial as for the FIA manufacturer races, so if I did cut the corner, it'd be the same half-second penalty applied. But it doesn't look as though we've been given a penalty, so we're going to charge through turn 6 at this point, lifting in third gear but then getting straight on the power. And the parrot's been a little bit more aggressive there on that corner because we didn't run all the way out into the curb. And that's really where this car does reward you, in the fact that the more speed you have, the better it seems to handle. Albeit at lower speeds, you start to get that overall feel of understeer kicking in. And because we haven't really played about with the brake balance, I'm still using the zero brake balance setting, we can't enforce an amount of oversteering to the car in order to counter the apparent understeer at the lower speeds. As we come through turn 7, so the initial chicane on the Mulsanne straight, and now going back onto the second part of the straight, and we can see that we're going all the way out to the track limits. We're getting faster and faster as we're coming out of those chicanes, and now just pushing down towards the second chicane, turn number 8. One thing I did learn to respect as well about this car was the fact that because it rode so low to the ground, and that's all part of the aerodynamic setup, every little bump you go over you're going to feel in this car. And when you go over raised curves in particular, what would end up happening is start vibrating the car quite seriously, and as a result that could really screw about with your braking point or your ability to pick when to shift up into the next gear, because what you'll find is the rev limiter starts to jut up and down as part of the vibrations. So that's why I'm trying to avoid going up on those raised curves too much, so simply because I don't want to cause vibrations in the car which will make it more difficult to control the car and get the gear shifts right. As we head down towards turn 9 then, we're about to slam on the brakes as we come through the initial kink. We can see going down to second gear, we flow through very nicely and then get on the throttle as we hit the outer curb and charge down towards the Gulf Straight at this point. We can see our lap times have definitely improved. We're getting a couple of red sectors compared to previous laps we've done as part of this initial session, and right at the bottom of the times on the right hand side of your screen, you'll see that initial 3:38.5 we recorded. Really now we're trying to beat a 3:32.4, and we're on track to do so almost so far, albeit with 2 temps down. We can perhaps make up for that as part of the latter sections of the track as we come through turn 10 here with maximum conviction as always, 196 miles an hour, braking down to 80 miles an hour into second gear and then getting on the power straight away, coming out of turn 11 down towards turn 12, braking this time down to second gear rather than first gear. As stated earlier, first gear means you hit the limiter quite often when you're coming out of a corner, whereas with second gear you've got that initial extension of speed and then you go up into third and then up into fourth. And now we're charging down towards the Porsche curves here. We can see that speed is just building. Now we're in the blue, we're up on our previous time. and we're coming into the initial Porsche curve. We brake, but we go down to third gear just at the last moment and immediately get back on the throttle, shifting up into fourth here into the second Porsche curve. And you can see I'm just enjoying the car, albeit a bit too much as I clip the wall there, just going into the third Porsche curve, and that cost me some speed, albeit I've got a good amount of speed coming through the final two curves, but that's annoying because I know in my heart if I hadn't hit that wall I could be going even faster at this point and perhaps be heading towards a 330 rather than at the moment we seem to be on course for a 331. And we come through the Ford chicanes, hitting them in third gear here, getting them nicely synced up, the second Ford chicane to wrap up the lap, and we'll be coming across the line, almost going on the gravel there, with a time of a 3:31.4. We're so fast through those final two Ford chicanes, we actually managed to get down to the 3:31s in the end. Moving on to the fastest lap of my session where I tried to beat that time of a 3:29.5. We're going to be transitioning over to the replay camera as I appreciate a good number of you love the Porsche 962C for her looks, and now you're going to get to see her attack Circuit de la Sarthe in a full splendour. On top of that, I'm going to be quiet for the purposes of this lap, so that way you get to enjoy the sound of that Flat 6 turbocharged engine as it goes full pelt. What a lap! And by looking at the chart in front of you, line 3 in particular, you'll see that we did indeed beat our record with 328.6. And I reckon if I had a bit more time, I could perhaps even try and get down into the 327s. and hopefully this just goes to show what a legendary car the Porsche 962C is and why it's highly respected within motorsport. Still, thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like, comment or subscribe for future episodes. As always, I've been TX141, and until next time, take care and drive safely.